Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is facing new scrutiny after appearing on the cover of Essence magazine. She is described there as the people's champion. Some legal commentators and attorneys argue that the public appearance risks blurring the line between Supreme Court justice and public figure, noting that a Supreme Court justice is not a celebrity. Defenders of Justice Brown Jackson note that other high court justices have also appeared on magazine covers.
Yeah, sitting Supreme Court justices, as you just mentioned, this is not totally unprecedented. They've appeared on magazine covers, including the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg in 2015 and Sonia Sotomayor in 2009. April Chapman is a Project 21 ambassador. Project 21 is a national leadership network of Black conservatives sponsored by the National Center for Public Policy Research. And Manny Alejandro is back with us. He's a Republican strategist and attorney. Great to have you both. So just going back to ED's point about the fact that we don't necessarily want Supreme Court justices who are out there on the cover of magazines. It's not unprecedented, but April, we did see that back in the Federalist Papers, and going back there, Alexander Hamilton, he said that we should not have this out there, that they should not be champions of the people. The Supreme Court is supposed to be unbiased and out of the public sphere. So what's your take on her appearing on this cover?
Well, you have to understand, Essence magazine is considered like the premier magazine of all things Black girl magic. And so therefore, it doesn't matter if the position of the Supreme Court justice is supposed to be one out of the limelight and one of impartiality. This is what they're celebrating. They're celebrating the symbolic gesture of a DEI hire. And those are not really my words. Joe Biden is the one who told us that Ketanji Brown Jackson was a DEI hire. So you have the most junior member of the Supreme Court who, unfortunately, is the least competent. And this is what happens when we celebrate symbolic gestures as opposed to someone who can define what a woman is and who can write in a coherent and cohesive manner and doesn't take their cues from Kamala Harris with word salad and grammar and composition where words go to die.
Yeah, Manny, I think to just expand on that a bit, I believe that what you're referring to is that when Joe Biden said he was going to select a Supreme Court justice nominee, he said, I will select someone who is female, and I believe he said Black. He may have said minority, but I think he said Black.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I will select the best person for the Supreme Court nominee. I will select someone from this very narrow specific. But is it fair? I mean, it's a magazine, a very well-read magazine, but still, it's a magazine. Or is the issue with them calling her the people's champion?
No, it's a great question. I think there clearly is an issue with judicial ethics, and judges need to appear to be impartial. So
a bigger overarching
issue.
what
happens if some judge is on the cover of another magazine? Might get an impression of what that magazine supports, and then would they be impartial if a case comes before them? Look at Sotomayor. She goes to the Yankees games. I'm a supporter of the Yankees. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm glad she's a Yankees fan. That's fine if you root for a sports team. But if you're kind of taking sides in terms of the people's champion, which people, right? You're going to get into a polarizing position. Supreme Court justices, and you referred to it correctly, Christia, with regard to the Federalist Papers. I mean, the founders thought about this and thought through the fact that these judges have unbelievable power and authority. What they say, what they do, how they dress means a lot. You see them during the State of the Union. The cameras close in on their faces. They do not make facial expressions. During oral arguments, they're closely watched in terms of how they take the oral arguments in and how they react, their body language. So we need to be careful in terms of the overall impression that people get. I'm not saying a judge can't give a speech. I'm not saying a judge can't be on the cover of a magazine, but we need to be careful, and there needs to be some type of ethical review here in terms of we can't let this get out of hand.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, just last week we saw how important the Supreme Court decisions are, oftentimes can supersede the President of the United States. So to show some sort of bias here could be concerning. But just going back to the Essence magazine posting, April, she did say, as the first Black woman to serve on the nation's highest court, there is no better moment to celebrate her extraordinary legacy. Ketanji Brown Jackson represents the American dream and serves as a powerful voice for those simply seeking the God-given birthrights promised to every American. I mean, that's a nice message. I can get behind that. I think she's a great example for young women and for people who are trying to get into the legal field. But to Manny's point, I think the blurring of the lines between celebrity and Supreme Court justice, it seems to be a little bit blurred here.
Well, absolutely, the lines are blurred. I echo the sentiment of your co-host who talked about these magazines are absolutely reflective of a worldview. And there is no secret that Essence magazine is very progressive, it is very leftist, and it's downright Marxist. And so if they are celebrating her extraordinary legacy, I would argue that it is not a legacy of American exceptionalism, but it is this smokeless war that we're currently engaged in, where now we have an activist judge on the Supreme Court, and that's highly problematic for me. I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating achievement. If you are a Black woman or anyone of any ethnicity, and based on your merit, you've achieved degrees and positions of status and power, those should be celebrated. The issue is this woman is on the cover of a magazine, and I'll end with this. It's funny how they're celebrating her judicial position on immigration. This is a magazine for Black people, and she was the Supreme Court justice that didn't even protect our position in this country and our birthright citizenship, but instead she sides with the illegal immigrant. And when we have Justice Clarence Thomas, who everyone wants to say that he's an Uncle Tom and that he's a traitor to his race, he was the one that was actually defending our birthright citizenship and our American heritage as Black people.
Interesting. Well, let's switch to this. Independent journalist Don Lemon talking about what Democrats need to do to win in the midterms and beyond. Listen.
We need to expand the court to at least 13 justices. We need to get rid of the Electoral College. If a Democrat wants to win in 2026 and 2028, that's how they would talk. Those are the policies that they would have, not some policies about, hey, you know what, maybe we should get Liz Cheney on or whatever. Okay, great. Liz Cheney, I'm glad that she's a reform Republican. But that's not what people want right now. They want someone who's going to have some balls, who's going to stand up and who's going to correct this.
He left his thesaurus at home.
Yes.
Okay, Manny, it's Don Lemon. I mean, so whatever. But he's saying a lot of the stuff that the Democrat Socialists of America want to do, other than they want to get rid of the Supreme Court. He's saying, expand it. And to his point, and to his credit, it's happened before. Why not now?
It's just this silliness that's pervasive right now.
But presidents have used this as a way to keep their power, to maintain their power, to push through their ideas before, going back to, when was it? 1801. They went from 6 justices to 5. Then they went up to 7. Then they went to 9. Then they went to 10. Then they went to 7. Then they went to 9.
Well,
I mean, it's happened.
It's a great question, but I think a lot of people who are making these comments should go to law school and take constitutional law classes. Actually should mandate it. When you learn about the Constitution and you learn about the way the Supreme Court works, it works. Where we're at right now works perfectly well. If you're not happy with the decision, like Hakeem Jeffries always says, then it becomes illegitimate. But if Supreme Court ruled against Trump with the slew of cases when they ended the term, what would Hakeem Jeffries have said?
Well, they did rule against Trump a couple times.
Yeah, with the birthright citizenship, he was for that ruling, right? But if it goes against what they believe in, allegedly, then they have a problem. You can't change the rules of the game during the game. This is where we're at. It works. There's no reason to stack the court. It's silly, because what number would you come up with? Let's say they go to 12 or 13 and it doesn't work.
Well, they were saying as many districts as there are, federal districts, match it up.
That won't work. It just won't work, because it would just muck things up, because the whole nominating process would be complicated. It's quite silly. It's just literally changing the rules of the game during the game. This is where we're at. It works. And just because you don't like the results, I'm sorry, to deal with the consequences.
But again, if if the DSA party faction
pie in the sky,
moves
let's
forward,
make stuff up.
they'll get rid of it. So
yeah, that seems like where they want to go.
April Chapman, Manny Alcondra, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.